Hey gang, it's Buddy Platt here. Today we're continuing on our spirit series. Today we're going to talk about gin. Gin is a distilled spirit with the predominant flavor of juniper. Easiest way to put it. You could kind of think of it as flavored vodka. I know the gin snobs would go crazy. They heard me say that, but basically we're taking a neutral spirit and we're adding flavor to it. In gin, it's juniper is the predominant flavor. Its origins date back to the Middle Ages, where it was like a lot of alcoholic beverages history. It was used as an herbal medicine. Most of these spirits have a medicinal purpose in its origins. It was only till later people thought about, hey, this makes you feel good. Modern gin itself has its origins from a Dutch liqueur known as Genever. Genever was the term they used to refer to the juniper berry. Similar. I don't know the Dutch that much, but they sound pretty similar. Other claims for the origins of gin include a physician named Franciscus Salvia. Also, there's claims that Italy might be the home of gin. Both of those are probably not likely. The first written mention of gin was in Holland in the 13th century. And later on in the 16th century, we had the first written recipe for gin, which was about the same time that Franciscus Salvius was a child. So most likely he didn't discover or create gin, and most likely the Italians didn't either. Even though gin's origin is in the Netherlands, most people relate gin to the British. And how the British came to discover gin, or Genever more importantly, was they were on the same side as the Dutch in the 80-year war. And British troops were stationed over there during the war, and they noticed the Dutch troops drinking Genever before battle and how it really got them fired up for battle. To the point where the English referred to it as Dutch courage. Well, the English troops liked it, brought it back to England, where it kind of got a so-so reception at first. The British were used to other spirits, brandy and cognac coming from France, and trading with, and the Scotch makers in Scotland, the whiskey guys in Scotland and Ireland. It wasn't until Britain got into another war and decided we're going to hike tariffs on French products and other distilled spirits from the rest of Europe, and which made that difficult to get. And then the British decided, well, we need our own spirit. We need to quit buying stuff from other countries, so we're going to deregulate gin. We're going to let you guys make all the gin you want, sell it however you want, just don't buy that French brandy. Well, it worked. It took off, and gin became almost an epidemic. They referred to it as the gin craze, and at one point there were 7,000 gin shops in the city of London. It would kind of be like if the U.S. government just said tomorrow, hey, we don't want you buying scotch or cognac or tequila anymore. We'll let everybody, if they want to, make bourbon or corn whiskey at home and sell it. We're not going to regulate you. It would be a disaster, and that's what ended up happening in Britain at the time. Finally, the British government decided, all right, we're going to clamp down a little bit. We're going to start regulating this a little bit, slow everybody down. Also, gin kind of lost favor in the upper crust of society or whatever, so things kind of settled back down. Now, gin did reemerge later on, around the 1800s or so, when British troops or sailors were sailing all around the world to protect the British Empire, and they were in tropical zones where malaria was an issue. Well, one of the ways they found to fight malaria was quinine. Well, the sailors didn't like the taste of quinine, but they discovered, well, you throw in a little tonic and you throw a little gin in that, and now we've got something. So they were literally rationed gin every day for gin and tonic so they could get their quinine, thus avoiding malaria. So they were drinking gin and tonics for their health. let's move now to look how gin is categorized, and we're going to talk about in two senses. One, how regulators will categorize gin, and second, how we, when we go to a liquor store or whatever, how we would buy gin or how the styles that we would look at. The EU has four different classifications for gin. First, they have a juniper-flavored spirit drink. Kind of wordy. It's a pot distilled spirit, unlike the other type of gins, which will use column stills. Its minimum ABV is 30% or 60 proof. This is closer to Genevier, the old Dutch version. Also closer to more like a liqueur because again it's lower ABV. Not huge here in the U.S. Or other parts of the world. Next is just regular gin, and gin is the simplest way to say it is gin is made by adding natural flavorings. Remember in the flavored vodka we learned that natural flavoring term was a little vague. We're adding natural flavorings, the predominant flavor being juniper, to neutral spirit. Now, is that during the first run, second run, are we adding it in a oil extract or whatever? That's a little vague. Next we have distilled gin. And what makes distilled gin unique from regular gin is that we're redistilling, but we're putting that juniper and the other botanicals in the still when we're running that next distillation. Kind of like the high-end flavored vodkas we were talking about that would throw, if you're making an orange vodka, you would throw actual orange peels or orange into that neutral spirit. Same here with the juniper and the other one. We'll either throw it in, or they do use something called a gin basket where it's inside the still, but it's hovering over the spirits. And when you recook that spirit and boil it off, those vapors go through that gin basket, pick up the juniper and other flavors as it's being redistilled. And then last is a term called London gin, or also known as London dry gin. And that is a distilled gin that has less than 0.1 grams of sugar per liter. There can be some sugar in gin, and so a London dry style naturally would be less sugar. Again, kind of like a dry martini, we have less vermouth. That's a way to think of that. Now, when we go to the store, there's four general categories that we look for. The most popular and the one you'll see them in most liquor stores, most of those bottles of gin are London dry gin. It's by far the most popular style. Your bottle of Tanqueray, your bottle of Bombay, Beefeaters, those are London dry gins. And again, they have very little sugar in them. They're 80 proof. I believe in the EU, 37.5% or 75 proofs the minimum there. But here in the US, that's 80 proof bottle of gin. Next we have Plymouth gin. Plymouth gin is real specific in the sense that it comes just from Plymouth, England. Comes from a single distiller makes it. And it's more of earthy flavor to it. If you go to a nice bar, they will have a Plymouth gin along with the other style gins. That's usually the second most popular style of gin. And then third we have Old Tom gin. Old Tom gin is an older recipe that kind of faded away, but now in our modern mixologist age is kind of making a little bit of a comeback. And Old Tom gin is a sweeter style gin, or sweeter gin, a little more sugar. Easiest way to think of it. And then last we have compound gins. Compound gins you don't see a lot of. There are one or two brands out there. Basically, compound gin is, best way I can put it, is almost like an infusion. I've actually made compound gin before, and I'll throw a link up here to the video where I had a gin, what it was called a gin making kit. Basically, you took vodka and added juniper and other botanicals, let it sit for a couple of days, and then you'd filter out the solids, and you had a compound gin. Because it's post-distillation, you're picking up color. I got some of the color from the juniper and the other deals, and so it's not a perfectly clear liquid. It's not solid, well, not white, it's not solid clear. It's almost like if you'd sprinkle a little bit of tea, like a instant tea in there or whatever, that just light browning of the liquid. And again, it's kind of just an infusion. It happens post distillations when we get the juniper and the other flavors in there. So those are the styles you'll see at a liquor store. Like I said, London Dry is by far the most predominant. I'll probably do a London Dry and a Plymouth gin video coming up. If I can find a compound, I'll do it. But if not, those are the two predominant styles that you'll see in liquor stores and bars. As far as botanicals, because I've used that term a little bit, gin is basically neutral spirits, has to be juniper-based flavor as far as the flavors. After that, though, you can have tons of secondary flavors. You can have spices, herbs, black pepper, orange peel, lemon peel, coriander, clove, cardamom, grain of paradise. You name it. And that's where gin, I think, differentiates yourself from vodka. Again, we talk about vodka. Plain vodka really only sticks out by how many times you distill or filter it or whatever. And so there's really not too many ways to distinct yourself from another type of vodka. Again, especially because most of the base is neutral spirit. Well, gin, you could buy that same neutral spirit that we would have bought to make our own vodka. You could do that now and again add juniper, but then after that you could go crazy with the spices on how much or whatever, again, as long as juniper is the predominant flavor. Some gins will have juniper, maybe 2 or 3 other spices. Some will have 10, 15 other. If you've ever seen a bottle of Bombay Sapphire, on the side it'll list the different botanicals that go in there. And so it really allows the distiller to play around, and kind of put their own mark. So if you, again, in this hypothetical world, we're creating spirit brands, gin would give you more latitude than vodka to really show your flair. The particular vodka we're going to try today is Gilbey's Gin. 80 proofs, 40% alcohol by volume. Gilbey's is a line of, for lack of a better term, well spirits. I know they do a vodka, a gin, might be a rum. I think there's a whiskey too. Anyway, it's just a line of well spirits. This in a plastic bottle. A lot of their stuff they sell is in plastic. But I thought it was a good base point to start off with gin. I think technically this is a London Dry. Yep. All right, we're going to give her a try. All right, I definitely smell the juniper. In full disclosure, I am not the biggest gin fan. This one, it's only 8 proof, seems kind of hot. Yeah, not much sweetness there. You get the juniper and not much more. This is pretty basic. I do pick up in gin, and we'll probably see it, probably see it with some of the Plymouth gin. I can imagine Old Tom with more sweetness. A little more viscosity in gin than in vodka. If you kind of did the wine thing swirling around, you would get some legs to it rather than just a neutral vodka. Overall, like I said, I'm not a big gin guy. But I'm sure throw that in some tonic water, squeeze enough limes, it'd be fine. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the videos because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.